up here. I'm waiting for it.
Well, good morning. My name is Girish Gupchab, and I'm the chair of Goal 5. And we'll talk a little bit about Goal 5. The initial Goal 5 that was sent to us was changed a little bit by our committee, and we'll go through that. And so, good morning to everyone on the live telecast as well. Before I begin, I just wanted to thank everyone who was in the committee. We had a fairly large committee. There was about 20 people on our committee. So we had people, and I won't go ahead and name everyone. There was people that represented every academic unit. There was people that represented athletics, student affairs, alumni. There was community members, members from chambers of commerce, a CEO of an organization in town. So what we were really looking at is community engagement in a very broad sense, and how can SIUE be engaged in the community in the broadest sense of the word. So what our committee did is we initially reviewed the charge given to us by the Chancellor. Just a little bit of a background, because I believe this is the first presentation for all the strategic plan goals. What had happened prior to our committee working on Goal 5 was there was a team, a leadership team, that had worked on the goals, the revised goals. So we have a strategic plan that expired in 2018. That team looked at the goals, and I believe University Quality Council was also involved in looking at those previous goals. And then they modified the goals and wrote objectives for the goals from the 2013 to 2018 plan. That was given to the 6 different committees, and we were asked to work on the goals and objectives based on the committee opinions. What we did is we looked at the goals and objectives given to us. The Chancellor also gave us something called big questions. So these were questions that had come up through that initial steering committee. What are questions that SIUE should answer in relation to all the goals and all the objectives? So we looked at our goal and our objectives. How should we change it? And we looked at all the big questions that were assigned to our goal. And then we augmented the things that were there in the big questions as well. Any questions about that? That was the process. So we revised the wording of Goal 5. We revised the 5 objectives that were given to us. We changed a few of the objectives, and I'll talk about that. And then we sorted and wrote KPIs. So the way our committee conceptualized this, and this is important to say right now, is we said, so we have a mission and vision, and as far as I know, the mission and vision are going to stay the same. Now, as far as I know. Is that right?
As far as I know as well.
Okay, so as far as we know, the mission and vision are going to remain the same. These are basically changes to our goals and objectives because times have changed since 2013. And so we conceptualize it like this, that our goals, or the 6 goals that we have in the new strategic plan, allow us to achieve our mission, okay? Our objectives allow us to achieve our goals, okay? And then we said, how do we operationalize our objectives, okay? The objectives that allow us to achieve our goals, how do we operationalize them? So we said we need key performance indicators to tell us, okay, we need to measure them every year to tell us that we are achieving those objectives, which in turn allow us to achieve the goals, okay? So that's how we conceptualized the whole process, and that's how we sorted and wrote KPIs for each objective, key performance indicators, or some people like to call them dashboards in our committee. So I put dashboards there as well, so if somebody's listening from the committee, they'd be happy. So the other thing we did is, I talked about the big questions, but we did one more thing. There is something called the Carnegie Classification for a Community Engaged University. Okay? And what we did is we looked at those guidelines. So you can be designated a community engaged university. Carbondale is actually designated as a community engaged university. I looked at their document. Jim Allen provided the document to me, and most of the things that allow them to be community engaged are what they do through the School of Medicine. Because the School of Medicine is under Carbondale, so a lot of the community engaged activities, all the clinics and those kinds of things, allow them to be designated as community engaged. So what we wanted to look at is what is kind of the gold standard to be a community engaged university, and can we incorporate some of those things as we go about defining our KPIs. So we did include some of those things. And the committee met 6 times. And so here is once I finish presenting, I want to open it up to discussion. So the original goal, you can see the original goal, but the new goal, 5, is building on our strengths, develop and nurture strategic relationships to effect positive changes in the university, region, nation, and the world. Okay? A little bit about how we changed it. We decided that we cannot be everything to everyone. So the committee decided that when we write the goal, we must build on our existing strengths. Okay? We also talked about preserving existing relationships, but also building new relationships based on what our strengths are and how we've changed. So that's why we chose the words develop and nurture. Again, we have to be mindful of our capacity, and considering our mission, we look at our mission and the shaping the changing world. That's the way we worded the new goal. Okay. So when you look at, I won't go into this in detail. I'm not going to go through reading the old objectives because the new objectives basically focused on 5 different areas. Okay. The first was students. Okay. Students partnering externally. Okay. The second was faculty and staff partnering externally. Okay. The third was related to diversity, inclusion, access, and sustainability, because there's a lot of activities we're doing, at the university, but also things that affect the area, the region, and the world. The fourth objective related to external awareness of accomplishments. So once we're doing things, this is for marketing and communications. So we had marketing and communications people on there, and we said, well, we gotta put you to work. So so we have several metrics for the objective 4. But honestly speaking, one thing I wanted to mention about this is we had a lot of discussion in our committee. And when you actually look at some of these things like US News and World Report rankings, part of that is more evidence than evidence, right? And so you really have to have the outside world know what you're doing, and it's got to be a consistent message. You can't have 20 different messages, otherwise it gets completely lost, right? So we need to say, these are the key things we do, and we've got to say it again and again and again in the right avenues, okay? So that's what external awareness was about. And then objective 5 was about personal and professional development for our employees, as well as for outside. So the expertise we have, how could we impact the outside world, okay, with our expertise, but how can we also develop our own SIUE employees to help impact the outside world. So one thing that came up, and I think I'll go to the next slide, And okay, well, one thing that came up was scholarship, okay? And amongst all these things, I'm only going to talk about the scholarship objective. There was an objective in here which focused on faculty and staff scholarship, okay? And representatives of graduate school were on our committee. So there's a big debate about this. Where does this go? So as you listen to the other presentations, think about this. We felt that the objective related to scholarly activity shouldn't stand as an objective in our goal. Rather, it can be a KPI, a key performance indicator, related to, remember the faculty and staff, the objective number 2 we had? It could be a very prominent KPI, and you'll see it when I present. A very prominent KPI with that objective, but research and scholarship should probably go into another goal somewhere. We're not saying that, because I had a meeting with the provost, to be very honest, the provost, the graduate school dean, and the question was, are you saying that scholarship is not important to external partnerships? We're not saying that. We're saying the objective is faculty and staff partnerships, student partnerships, but research is an integral part of that, okay? So we're not saying it's not important, so I just wanted to clarify that. We wanted to classify it by the different groups, okay? Is that clear? Okay. Everyone, nobody's throwing anything at me, so that's good. Let me go through the objectives quickly, and we have a really large document here. We have several KPIs that we identified with each objective. Okay, how are we going to operationalize each objective? We have several KPIs. We probably have about 15, on average, about 10 to 15 KPIs for each objective. What I'm presented here on the slides is the chancellor asked us, could you identify 3 or 4 KPIs that you think are the most important as a committee, okay? And these are the ones I'm presenting. The 3 or 4 KPIs we identified as a committee that we thought were important, but we also thought for objective 4, remember, communicate externally, that these are the things that should be measured every year, but this is what helps us brand the university. Okay, so the 3 or 4 KPIs really were, for that branding purpose, so people get to know us, and they repeatedly hear about these things, and this is what we're all about. If you think about universities, you hear, oh, this university is great. Well, people say, Webster, oh, I'm picking on Elsa, Webster is great for cybersecurity. Why? Because they tell everyone so. Okay? So she says, yes, she's a mass comm major. Well, she nodded her head, so I got to be right. She's a mass comm. But you have to, otherwise it becomes a very amorphous message. So that's what we did. So what are the things? So the objective 1 is develop and strengthen opportunities for students to partner. We said, here are the 4 KPIs we came up with. Measure student involvement, community engagement, and you can go through and read all the things we said we need to measure. The Student Athlete Advisory Committee, I was unaware of this, that athletics collects a lot of information about the number of hours and the number of things, the number of events that athletes do in the community to impact the community. I was unaware of this, but this is good to know. So we learned a lot. Student community research, for example, IRCA, so you can see that we're putting research in there. So student research is in there. So we're not saying research is not important, it's just a KPI, okay? An important KPI at that. And then interprofessional clinical education experiences, our health sciences programs do a lot of things in the community. We spend a lot of hours, and there are some things that we do not measure consistently. So for example, the dollars we save, okay, from our clinical activities, how much do we save the community? What is our economic impact on the community? Okay, we don't, when we've done economic impact studies in the past, it's been, the economics department is fairly cursory, but now, when we do these things, we're gonna have to measure a little bit more, okay? So we're gonna have to go down, drill down to the number of hours of clinical service, and those kinds of things, or research, and how much do we save the community, or how much we contribute to the community in terms of dollars. I don't exactly know how to do that, but I have full confidence in our economics professors. Okay. Objective 2 is faculty and staff. Here are the three areas. Service, so things like paid consulting, advisory boards. So what are we doing in terms of impacting the community? Professional organization service, etc. Okay? External service contracts, sponsored research projects. Okay? Office of Research and Prize number of submissions, number of awards. So we figured those are all the things we're doing to impact the community or the outside world. And then other research, for example, technology transfer, collaborations with outside entities, number of collaborative publications, performances. Remember, some of the things we're putting up here as KPIs, we're already measuring. Some of the things we're partially measuring, and some of the things we have to start measuring. So when we put these things up here, we have to come up with a process to measure these KPIs, okay? And we may not have processes to measure all of them. I know collaborative publications and performances and exhibits, we measure those things. So, by the way, we had somebody from Arts and Issues, I think it's called, in CAS, on our committee, and they said that these things are measured, like exhibits. Yes, they.
Can we go back to
Yeah.
that one?
Sure.
When you talk about sponsored projects, are you talking about all grants and contracts? And assuming that they all benefit the community, or are you trying to segregate certain ones?
So, we assume that all sponsored projects, contracts that they're recorded by the Office of ORP, Office of Research and Projects, have some benefit to the community. Because, I mean, think about it, right? I mean, we don't do a research project for us.
We hope not.
Yeah, we don't do a research project, so we're going to have this data and we keep it a secret. It's of no use, right? If we're doing a research project and it's been sponsored by somebody on the outside, it has some value, some community value. And so,
I'm trying to understand the scope of what that KPI is.
yes, so did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, so 3, 4, and 5, and then we'll open it up to questions. This is diversity, inclusion, access, and sustainability. So we talked about outreach events, the East St. Louis Center, what we're doing a lot of projects in Madison County, the school districts, and there's several other projects that are being done by several units. And then it was interesting. We said one of the things we need to measure, so economic impact study was already in there, but when we talked about diversity, inclusion, access, sustainability, we said we need to start measuring the economic impact on underserved populations. We don't specifically do this, but there are a lot of studies that we found where a lot of universities are doing this. This actually came from the Carnegie Classification, okay? So universities do this to say, how much are we impacting underserved populations? So we operationally define what underserved populations are that we serve, and then we do an economic impact study, which I think will be very powerful. But we don't do it at this point, but it could be even international communities that are underserved. So I'm looking at Mary, but yeah. Objective 4 is marketing and communications. So we felt that every unit that could have an advisory board should probably have an advisory board. It's a reality check, but it also is great because, I mean, I can just speak for myself. The advisory board in the School of Pharmacy has been awesome because they are positive spokespeople. They're out there, people trust them, and that's how you get known. Okay. Alumni association activities, and I think we're already measuring that. And then media coverage and analytics. I guess marketing and communications is all over that. There's about 10 different analytics that they gave us. It's in our large document, and I'd be happy to send this document to everyone. Okay, I will send it to UQC, and then UQC can decide to disseminate it as they. I mean, none of this is a secret. Okay, we're talking about community engagement, so. And the final objective, we talked about this a lot. I think we had probably 2 meetings. This was over 2 meetings. And when we talked about personal and professional development, we talked about there's 2 categories. One is developing our own, so that's internal people seeking advancement. So one example was a faculty development center, but we had staff development in there as well. And the second was external people seeking advancement, so like Office of Educational Outreach, all the workshops we do, all the badging that we're thinking of doing, and those kind of things. And then the Small Business Development Center is what we talked about. But there are so many different things that we do. I mean, for example, you talk about Sustainable Communities Collaborative, a Successful Communities Collaborative. That was one of our KPIs as well in there. And then, that's a great program where our students are helping the community solve problems, contemporary problems. I think I didn't mention it was one of our KPIs on the slide. Yes?
Yeah, that bottom one there, this is probably just a couple of examples, because the School of Business does some outreach.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So what we've tried to do is as comprehensive as we can in this document. But I think we're done. So I'll stop. Yes. So it's not questions. This is what we presented the Chancellor's Council in June. So really, what I'd like to do is, like you were mentioning, Dave, an open discussion. So some of the things you mentioned, we may already have put into our document, but we may not. Okay, we may be off base somewhere. You may have comments about what different types of KPIs we could do. What are your comments about our objectives, our goal? It's just open to discussion now. Because do you want me to put the objectives up again? Would that be easier?
Harish, you can do that while I'm talking, but
Okay.
I'm coming from, as you know, international partnerships, and so I was curious as to how that might fold in.
Okay.
But
So-
what I'm seeing, and maybe it's already there, or maybe it belongs someplace else, but objectives 1 and 2, students, faculty, staff, and I'm wondering where institutional partnerships that cut across those, all of those fit, and I just don't know. I'm asking that question. And then the other comment I would have is that the idea of nurturing partnerships, I like that. I think that's really important because sometimes it's easier to make a partnership than it is to nurture the partnership. The follow-up is really what makes it valuable to both parties. And so I'm glad you put that there.
Okay.
So the question is the international institutional partnerships. Where is that?
I'm looking to, of course, this is like an 8-page document. I'm looking to see, honestly, to be very honest, I cannot remember if we had international institutional partnerships in there as a KPI.
Yeah, and even taking off the international institutional partnerships, I'm not familiar with all the different kinds of partners, but from my point of view, the international 30-some partners.
So tell me, I don't see it here actually, so that's a good point. So which objective do you think it would fit best under?
I think number 2.
Number 2,
And
okay.
what I would suggest, develop and strengthen external faculty, comma, staff, and institutional
Oh, okay, okay.
partnerships. And then that sort of covers you could fold in international, what are we doing internationally?
Okay, good point, okay, I like that.
Because oftentimes, I mean, a partnership might start with a faculty or staff member, but it ultimately is an institutional partnership.
Yeah. So we do have interaction with T-Rex, biotech parks. We have collaborative publication performances. We have faculty partnerships with field experience sites, program change initiated by advisory boards. We don't have international partnerships, so I will put that in, and I will send an email to the committee. I'm sure the committee will, we're looking for input like this. That's good, that's a good suggestion. What else? Yes?
Just kind of piggybacking on that and sort of for clarification, because it seems like when I read goal 5, it's broader, even though I think the positive changes are outside the university. It kind of makes me think of relationships in the nation, world, university. But then in the objectives, we kind of talk about community, and it kind of seems like the assumption is just this immediate community, and you have faculty that work in St. Louis. So are some of these KPIs and whatnot going to be segregated based on community, or are we going to be thinking broader than just the Edwardsville, East St. Louis region?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, because when you're looking at, for example, you're looking at things like, the student projects, the ERCA projects, successful communities, collaboratives, a lot of things are done in the area, but outside the area as well. When you're looking at clinical activities, they're done outside the area as well. So we would be actually documenting things in our area. Now, you brought up a good point, because when...
Because then we're going to do an event this weekend in Hazelwood.
Okay,
for
yeah.
community outreach.
So that would be included in our area. Now, but the point that's really important, and building on what Mary did. See, when you look at committee dynamics, we're limited to what the committee knows, right? We had committee members. We had the president of the Glenhead Chamber of Commerce. We had executives from the area. So we tend to think about what we do regularly, and this is a really important point, because the chancellor says shaping a changing world. But maybe we should have some more KPIs about shaping a changing world, okay? Because we're talking about the region and the nation, okay? There's several KPIs, but the world is probably not included. So when you say outside the area, we should also say outside the area that extends to the nation, and so I'm going to put that on now.
India and Haiti and Jamaica.
Yes.
Exactly, I'm
More global.
I agree with that, and I'm thinking like the travel study and study abroad.
Okay.
Would be kind of an
So,
objective one.
Would that go under ensure external partnerships represent the values of diversity, inclusion, access, and sustainability? Would that go there?
Or would it go under one with students? It depends how you frame it. I'm thinking of students working in Haiti or traveling abroad to Spain for a semester.
Right.
Yeah.
But
I'm not sure if that.
they could be. So we have actually students, staff, and faculty that are doing these things. So if we did that, in that case, it would more easily fall under objective 3.
It could.
Yeah, if you have a KPI and you're going to measure it, right? I mean, and we know we're going to measure it, then we'll measure it every year. I mean, I don't know how this is going to be measured. I don't know that process yet, but I'm assuming, Elsa left, but I'm assuming if you look at the role of the UQC, University Quality Council, that's their responsibility to monitor, updates of the strategic plan. So I'm assuming if we include that as a KPI, so let me put that down. So I'm putting, good points. So, so there's clinical activities that we do. I'm trying to think through this, right? I'm not, now that this has just come up. There's clinical activities that we do beyond this, the immediate area, and we do it nationally and internationally. There's student-related activities, which are basically what? Community service, right?
Well, there's service learning, and then there's academic study abroad, and
What else? Help me. What else do we? I'm trying to cover everything.
I mean, I'm not, so I'm the Multi Involvement Center for Community, Assistant Director for Community.
Oh, good. Hey.
So I guess I'm
okay.
trying to understand exactly what it is I mean, on a regular basis, we're working to put students in touch with whatever we can, as often as we can. And that would look like, a lot of it happens around Edwardsville or surrounding areas.
Right.
But, I'm from St. Louis, and
Okay.
so we'll be here, obviously, in civil service, I'll be over here soon, but I have a lot of connections to service opportunities in St. Louis.
Yeah.
One of our ASB trips is hopefully going to be in St. Louis. Because my hope is that as a metro area, we are considered very connected. I mean, I just
Right.
consider us all very, really
Yeah, yeah.
connected. And what happens there impacts here, what happens here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so getting our students to understand that. I realize that a lot of the clinical experiences are really understood to be very interchangeable. Like, that's the thing. Like, WashU was very heavily influencing in my old job, but if it's not inside of clinical, a lot of the students are very apprehensive to go to that
Okay.
side. And so getting them to understand that those experiences over there, it's 20
Okay.
minutes, it's not a big deal, it's hard.
So when you look at the goal, okay, when you look at our mission and our goal, and then the question you're asking, actually Sarah was on our committee.
Yeah.
So, she's a director. So I think we tended to focus on, what we're already connecting and what we're already doing. But I think the point that's coming up, everyone's agreeing, that we probably need to focus on branching out a little more, because they're meaningful experiences,
Yeah,
not just meaningful experiences for students, but they're meaningful to the community.
yes.
Okay, so I guess the question that occurs is, this is where we need your help.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
So how would you define what is meaningful, what are meaningful opportunities for students, and then how would you measure that? That would become our KPI, right? So you would, I think it would fall under objective 1.
That's where I keep
Right.
going back to, is partnering externally. So for me, when I go, so we gave a presentation to the genetic elite scholars.
Okay.
So often what I'm running into is folks are coming to us because they're compelled to complete service through scholarships that they have to, they have to complete. What I am hoping for them is that we're going to find them a passion, and we're going to connect them to a space that's going to spur them to become engaged citizens, right? Whether they stay here, they move somewhere else, internationally, nationally, wherever they land. So I talk to them about this not being a volunteer experience, this being a service experience, and that I want them to have service hours. I don't want them to go back to the church that they're from, and that
Absolutely,
they're
yeah.
going to that same space where they're comfortable and they're not going to be challenged
Right.
or step outside of a comfort zone. I want them to go to a new space, see new people, experience new things, challenge a bias, see something different than what they've seen or experienced before. And so this is something we're working through, because that's my personal feel about how service should be, but I'm not necessarily sure that's entirely where the university is at yet. And so it's just something small I'm trying to kind of push forward student by student, but externally.
But you're the community, what's it called, the community engagement center. So let me read what I have here. What I'm thinking is, I like what you say, but I'm thinking what we could do is the KPI here. So it says measure student involvement and community engagement, okay? And then under that we have, you know, we're going to measure co-op programs, internships, co-curricular, non-curricular, external graduate assistance, study abroad. So we had study abroad in there, okay? And then it said Kimmel in student involvement volunteer projects. So number of projects, number of hours, number of students, number of clients served, number of meals, pounds of food donated, number of partners, alternative break. So we had all these things that were in there, okay? What I think, because I don't know, I like what you're saying, but I don't know enough about what you're saying, and I think what you're saying is you're trying to crystallize your mission and then get students to accept it, but then you're going to have to come up with a way to monitor that as well.
Yeah.
And document.
We're still connecting them to the spaces and places they've been going, but we're also finding new
Okay.
places for them to go, and some of those are in St. Louis and some of those are still here. They don't want to leave campus. It's hard to get the, they want to come to the Cougar Cupboard, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah, yeah.
You need to go off the campus. Like, let's get off the campus.
But,
somewhere else.
so that's our job, right? I mean, I hear, you know, somebody, you know, students come out of the pharmacy specific.
Yeah.
Oh, they're, you know, they're not good at chemistry. Well, that's our job, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean,
No, and
we
that's
can't
why
just
we're working
admit them and say they're not good at chemistry, let's graduate them.
No,
So-
so we're getting them out there and they're doing it. It's not a problem. There's more, trust me, there's plenty of work to be done, and we have plenty of partners, and we're pulling new partners in all the time and working with.
Right,
them
so,
to find
so
these spaces.
it's a slow process,
Yeah.
it's
There's not a lack of work. to
it's a
be done.
paradigm shift,
Mhm.
and as you get more people involved in it, there's gonna be early adopters,
Right.
there's gonna be late adopters, there's gonna be some
Yes.
laggards.
Yes.
But they'll come, you know, if students see that other students are doing things and it's meaningful to them, you'll get, it's a snowball effect.
Sure.
So I think I like what you're doing, and I don't exactly know how to articulate it in writing, but I can send you these KPIs if you can work with Sarah and reword that KPI. We'll put it in.
Okay.
That sound fair? Yeah.
Yeah, and then I would also add to, I know that we don't do it, we track everything on there already, I know that, and what you listed. I don't know that we currently track the value in terms of the monetary value of what that is for the community, but I think that could be done.
Right.
In my prior experience working in nonprofits, and through grant funded positions, we were able to, through like federal grants and things, you're given a dollar amount for how much your volunteers' hours are worth, and you're allowed to basically use that as a cash back in. And so say we had 12 volunteers, $18 an hour, you get that back in money, and
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
can essentially do something in the kin.
So there's ways, there's ways to do it. I mean, I know that our economics department has quantified our impact on the community. All we're doing now is when we say we're quantifying it, we're going to drill down deeper, and we're going to find the economic value of clinical services, the economic value of student. It's one indicator, right? I mean, I guess it's more than economic. It's a social justice aspect. And, but it gives our marketing and communications an opportunity to say what we're doing, how we're impacting the community. It gives our chancellor an impact. I mean, for some people it's all about money, right? I mean, yesterday I was at an event where the governor of Missouri was talking about, you know, all the investments, you know, under me, so-and-so has happened. Under me, the workforce has increased by so much, which is equivalent to so many dollars. I mean, I think dollars as a common denominator that speaks to everyone.
Well, it's one piece of something, and so as a social worker, we're taught that because you have to often go out and find resources, you have to be able to frame your discussion or frame your argument for what you need, and so whatever it is that falls into that too.
So I will send you this if you could articulate it, because not my area. I'd be very grateful. It's great, yeah. What else? What else do we have? Yes.
Yeah, this is an immature thought, so be patient with me, but, and it seems strange coming from a finance person to say this, but I'm a little concerned about the amount of measurement that's involved here.
Mm-hmm.
So many KPIs for each objective, and then this is just one of 16.
Yes.
It takes time and money to collect all that data, to
Yes.
put it in a repository, to figure out how to communicate to all the various constituencies.
Yeah.
You know, there's one school of thought that says things that are measured get done.
Mm-hmm.
There's another school of thought that says some things that are important are very difficult to measure. Like, how successful are we at having students, at linking students to a career and a life that they're passionate about?
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to measure.
Right.
So I'm a little concerned that we're going to be spending a lot of time and money on that. And I'm not sure it's the cost benefit is worth it.
This is why, when we went through the process, we identified what is most important to measure, right? And if you look at what we identified as the 3 or 4 most important KPIs to measure, and we said, we need to measure these consistently, 3 or 4 KPIs, and it needs to be talked about all the time, okay? So we know we'll measure those. So if we identify, let's say there's 6 goals, and I don't know how many objectives each goal has. So maybe, let's say 5, So 30, and multiply that by 3 KPIs each. So that's about 90 KPIs, right? If we're measuring 90 KPIs, these things are being measured. It's part of what a department does.
90 wouldn't be bad, but you had 90 yourself.
No.
If you add up all the things that you were talking about, you can measure.
Yeah, but if you actually look at one of the things, let's look at it. Student activities, for example, and a lot of these things we already do measure, right? Let's look at the Kimball one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So number of projects, we measure that. We do annual reports, we measure all the time. Number of hours, we measure that. Number of students, we measure that. It's already done, so it's in place, right? It's not. So what I would say is that 95% of what we're saying we need to measure is already being measured. Okay. The question now is that's why objective 4 becomes important. How do we take those and package them into what are we doing to impact the external community?
Right.
So how do we take what's already being measured? So everyone is measuring all these things, but there's a lot of parochialism. So we measure them and we send it out to our boss and we say, okay, we're doing this, and then the report goes somewhere, right? Nobody on the outside hears. So if you think about it carefully, a lot of what we're doing, 95% of what we put there is already being measured. It's a repackaging issue, okay?
Which is objective 4.
Right, and so all these things, number of clients served. Now, new partnerships would be maybe, you talk about new that would be, so any new partnerships you have, you measure those. I mean, if you say that's part of our new mission, we measure it, but then you measure the same outcomes for the new partnerships, right? You don't change those, okay? You have a system to measure these things already. Isn't there a system where we can measure all this? I think there's some package you have where students can go in and.
Where they record their hours?
Yeah. What's it called?
They record their hours through like Get Involved. They go in there and they put it
Get
in,
Involved, okay.
and then we can approve or deny
Yeah.
based on.
See, I think the other interesting thing is, you'll know this, Dave, having worked here for a long time, we have actually a lot of systems in place where the intention is really good and we wanted to measure things, but people are not consistently using them. So we're not really capitalizing on the tremendous power of a lot of the technology we already have. So the only really big thing that in terms of the 3 or 4 KPIs is actually measuring the dollars. Our impact in terms of dollars, okay? which we don't. Now I know in the pharmacy school we do that, okay, because I'm talking about pharmacy, our faculty in their annual reports, they write down how many patients they see and how much money they're saving. So we're already doing it. So if we're doing it, why keep it a secret? You know, I mean, but now it's a question of, I'm sure the dental school is also doing it, but the question is, now how do we get the other, like social work, and how do we get them documented? They probably are already doing it, but then how do you communicate that, right? So it's more of a repackaging and communicating, restructuring, making things more organized.
Thank you.
So I think that, and perhaps if we measure all these things and do them consistently, we'll keep doing it. I think eventually we might meet the standards for a community engaged university, which would be very powerful. It would be a powerful message. Probably not there yet, but
How powerful has it been for Carbondale? I'm just not convinced of that. But anyway.
well, let's not compare. I mean, let's say we can make it powerful.
We made it to the Forbes list for #1 for SIUE for community engagement. So.
There you go. See, we can make it powerful, right? It's all in how you package it, right? And I have faith in our marketing communications guys. So, yes, Walter.
Yeah, I had the same concern that Dave had with so many KPIs, because once you start putting together how this is going to be done, the resources that are going to be needed, because for each one of those measures, we're going to probably need a reporting person or group.
Mm-hmm.
And so with so many of them, just for this one objective, or for this one goal, it seems overwhelming. So I've heard what you've said.
Yeah.
But still, for me, it's still a little bit of a concern.
There's a danger of overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, data for the sake of data, right? I mean, so I think what we're going to have to do is, so this is what our committee came up with. I think once this goes to UQC is going to have to decide. So, what do we measure? What is most important to us? What is part of our fabric? What is part of our values that we will continue to measure as most meaningful to us, that we want to let the outside world know we're doing, okay? Because I don't know, unless there's an argument about the fact that we have to, this particular goal, we have to build our strengths and develop and nurture strategic relationships so that we can effect a positive change. I think most people at the university will agree that that's a goal we should have, right? So if that's a goal we should have, what is most important to that goal? This is our committee's effort at identifying what's most important goal. Now UQC could say, okay, now, remember our committee is working only with this one goal. Now when it goes to UQC, they look at all these goals and all these KPIs. Then a prioritization is going to have to occur at some level, right? But if these things are already being measured, so a prioritization and also how these things that are being measured actually go to one central place and that's communicated, right? Laura's probably saying I measure a heck of a lot more than this every hour, right? You guys have so much data. So, but I think that if we're committed to this, and I don't know if I should say this, but at the School of Pharmacy, I would always say, resources should flow through the strategic plan. If we decide that this goal is important to us and these KPIs are important to us because they're of value to us, and we need to let the community, this is a value, this is what we're about, then resources should flow through the strategic plan. That is easy to...
But resources for community engagement is great. Resources for measurement, I'm not so sure. That's my only point.
If you're doing, just to counter that, if you're doing something and it has meaning, if you don't document it, it's lost.
Yeah, it's just a
So
question of value.
Yeah.
You got an awful lot of things you're trying to measure.
yeah, and so I see your point, and I think what's going to have to happen is some prioritization is going to have to occur. I don't disagree with that at all. I just don't have a picture, since I'm on tape, I don't have a picture for what the other goals look like, right? I don't know how many KPIs they have, and so.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I know.
Beyond the scope of your committee, it's
Right.
really going to have to be.
Yeah, I'm not in the best position to answer that question completely because I really don't know. So my answer is what I answered, but I can only answer it based on what I know. So, you know.
Okay, thank you.
In terms, I'll just say this, in terms of the measurement and things like that, I oftentimes feel a little conflicted. Like from my social work perspective, I like to just do the things to do the things, right? I don't usually or typically want to monetize things, right? But at the same token, I will tell you, having worked in nonprofit through the years, and it really isn't different wherever you go. Community engagement and community work is heavily under-resourced and it's heavily underfunded. And that is often because there isn't enough time to do assessment and there isn't enough time to collect data. And so if we can, and we can tell our story and we can own our story, and we have a better opportunity to say, hey,
Prove the benefit.
we
Yeah.
can prove the benefit, and not only can we prove the benefit, we can show out that this thing that you asked of our community at SIUE, we are not only doing, we're doing very well,
Right.
and it might deserve a little bit of something to
Right,
help it be
right.
even better.
So you know, this is the argument about structure, process, and outcome, right?
Right.
So the question is, when we have certain goals, we put structure in place, and then we decide the process. So you said, in social work, I do things because I do them. That's the process. But outcome is important, right?
It is, absolutely.
Because you know, it can help you do things maybe a slightly different way to have a better impact.
Yeah.
So I mean.
It's why I became a community organizer
Right.
and not a social work researcher.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it's different.
I always-
But I'm so glad they're there because I need their research.
Right.
But yes.
Yeah. So I always give the example, you know, a structure, process, and outcome, and you probably know about this. It was coined by a guy called Don Abedian at the University of Michigan, and he actually said, so the example I give is, you know, structure. You give me and my mom the same ingredients to bake a cake. Okay? We have different processes. We're both convinced that our processes are great. Outcomes, you know, my mom's cake would be beautiful, soft, you can all eat it. Mine would be as hard as rock. So there is something to be said about the outcome, right? And the only way you can do it is assessment. If you don't taste it, you don't know. So, so I think that assessment is very important for strategic planning. And for everything we do. I mean, you know that as a finance person, we don't assess things.
Yeah.
You know, what's your return on investment?
Yeah.
So
We need to know it's super important too for the work that we do in community work to know that we're not just doing it well, that we're doing it with the correct intention. I never ever want to go into communities and do any harm. I never ever want to go into communities and assume that we're providing them things that they want. I always want to go into communities and provide the kind of help that they're asking for and that they need and want. And so that comes from understanding the kind of
Right.
stuff we're going to do.
yeah, good. Well, good. So what else? Anybody else has any comments? Yes.
Just want to make sure I understand. I heard a couple of different things. So,
Okay.
do I understand correctly that there are more measures on objective one, like co-ops and internships? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
So
you said that separately, and then I don't see it here. So.
no, yeah. So Chris, what we did was we went through, you know, the objectives and all the KPIs that the committee listed, and then we were asked to come up with what we felt the top 3 or 4 KPIs are.
Gotcha.
Honestly, these are KPIs that would help branding, right? Now, I was really intrigued with that because we have, is Successful Communities Collaborative on there? So interestingly, that is not on there, but it is a KPI in our objective 1 here. And now with all the press we have and all the communities interested, that might actually find its way. This was what the committee, remember we ended in June. There's been a lot of great activity, and so that might actually find its way in here. So I mean, this is, the good thing about strategic plans, if you think about them, is to some extent you can consider them living documents, right? I mean, the goals are important to us, the objectives are important, but our KPIs sometimes can change because we start doing some really meaningful things related to it. Then we need to push those up, right? So we're a dynamic institution, right? So yeah. So you get the point, yeah. Anything more? I think we have 5 more minutes.
I wanted to add, so
Absolutely.
I work in financial aid and we do
Okay.
a bit of outreach in the community.
Okay.
And I wanted to make sure that it was maybe quantified somewhere. So we go and give financial aid presentations, we
Okay.
do FAFSA completion
Excellent,
events, things like that, which it doesn't matter if they're coming to SIUE or if they're going to XYZ
Right.
institution, we donate that time to them. So
Okay, so this is, see, I did
it's
not know.
measured in my, like in our annual report, and
Yeah.
I keep detailed notes.
Right.
on it.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what I'm saying, Dave. I mean, we measure a lot of things in our annual report, and we said that this, it just has to be, that part has to be directed here to maybe the UQC. So, so that would probably, let me put objective 5 up.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. So you actually educate external people. So that would probably fall under external people seeking advancement. So under that, we have, education, educational outreach, non-credit master clinics, alumni associate mentoring, small business, external faculty and staff consulting, cultural offerings, example, theater, dance. I mean, we don't even have that in the top 3, but those things are important. So financial affairs does that?
Financial aid, yeah, student financial.
Sorry.
aid. That's okay.
No.
In enrollment management, we do that.
Oh, that's enrollment management, okay. And you do this for the community?
We do. Like last night, we helped file 15 FAFSAs, and, I feel like you could potentially measure that.
Yeah.
The students that we were filing were 0 EFCs, who, that if that resource wasn't there, they might not get that funding that they need for the next year.
Yeah. So that's good. I wrote this down. See, this is where at some place we can measure all these KPIs. The question then becomes the prioritization. I mean, it's going to happen at some point. It's going to have to happen at some point. So, so good. That's good. Anything else? Jennifer? We good? Laura?
Good.
Good? Okay. Brendan?
Good.
He just has a thumbs up, okay. So I think we're good. Well, thank you. If you have any more comments, I'm assuming send them to me and I'll share them with UQC. I think everybody knows how to get a hold of me. So I know most people here, so when you work long enough at SIUE, you can't get away. So thank you everyone, and please send comments, and if your people in your divisions have comments, please send them. We'll have another session with this goal. I think it's in November. Thank you. So it's on tape now. So